Good afternoon, Cedarfield. How is everyone doing today? It's officially summer and the temperatures are going up. And since it is so nice outside, I would advise all of you to take a little walk outside of the Pathways to Wellness building to the little pond. We have 4 new residents here at Cedarfield by way of some tiny little ducklings, and they are adorable, and they're swimming around in our pond with their mama, and they're so cute. So go check them out, enjoy this nice weather, and go see our new residents here at Cedarfield. Alrighty, my little plug for something cute. So as you can see today, we have a special guest. This is Erin Carmody. She is my current dietetic intern. We've had quite a few coming in and out. She's doing a short rotation here, but she is interested in long-term care, and she's been great here so far. So I thought I would have you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you're doing your internship.
Hi everyone, my name's Erin. Like she said, I grew up in the Midlow area, right down south side, originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Go Steelers. Went to school in Tennessee and for my undergrad, and then came back for my family, and now am learning from VCU in the dietetic program there, and have chosen to do an rotation here with Cedarfield.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. So kind of where are you in the process of becoming a dietitian? How much more time do you have till it's official?
So I'm about halfway through my internship, and that internship is about 1,400 hours supervised practice, which you can complete after your undergrad. So I've done the undergrad, now I'm halfway through my internship, and then after this internship I can sit for the exam, hopefully pass, and then become an RD.
And you will do fine. Well, that's awesome. So you're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So what made you want to be a dietitian?
So in my undergrad, I played sports my whole time. I played volleyball, and I coached, and just seeing the effect of poor nutrition versus great nutrition and how that affected the body, and just seeing it have an impact and making people enjoy life and enjoy other aspects of life more because they had put nourishing foods in their body.
Well, good. Any aspirations as to what you want to do once you are a dietitian?
Depends on the week.
Yeah.
I really do see myself in a long-term care facility. Also, some days I've always been a nanny, so I still want to have ways to connect with kids as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, good.
The internship is a great place for me to learn.
It is.
And see what is all out there.
Yep.
With the field being very big.
Yeah. I think right up until my last week of the internship, I still had no idea what I wanted to do as a dietitian, and that's totally normal. So the program at VCU is great because you get to do a lot of different rotations and kind of explore lots of things. All right. Well, great. Well, good luck to you and the rest of your internship. And we look forward to hearing all the great things you do as a dietitian.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to move on to our topic of the day. This is a topic I've been wanting to talk about for a really long time, but it's kind of hard because it's more of a visual topic, and so props are kind of hard to manage with just one person. So now that I have Erin here, we're going to utilize some props. I do realize that the video quality isn't great, so you may have some trouble seeing the props, and we apologize. So we'll do our best to kind of explain what we're looking at in case you can't really see it. But anyway, we are going to talk about the nutrition facts label. So we have all picked up a box of pasta or potato chips or whatever, and when you flip it over, you see that little white column on the back that has all the numbers and the calories, and some people have taken it upon themselves to figure out what all that means, and other people have no idea, but you can really get a lot of good information off of that. So we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to kind of go through it and talk about how to decipher what all of that information is. So Erin's going to kind of propose some questions about it, and then I'm going to see how I can answer them.
So we're going to start with the first section, and that is the top of the nutrition facts label.
Yeah.
It covers the amount of servings and the calories mainly. So the first questions would be, how do I know how much to eat? How many people does this feed? And how does this tell me how much is in the whole package or serving size?
Yeah. All right, so again, this is the top section of the nutrition facts label. So the first thing you're always going to want to look at, so they make calories really big. And so very recently, in the last few years, the FDA is who puts these labels together. They took it upon themselves to create two columns. So there you'll see the per serving column and the per container, which I think is an excellent move, because I think this could, before they made this move, it was pretty deceiving, because you'd see this number, 160 calories, on maybe a whole big bag of Doritos and think, oh wow, I can eat this whole bag and it's 160 calories, when in actuality that was just per serving. So I think it's a really great move to show you what the calorie amount, and then all the other nutrients as well, is per serving, and then how many calories or the other nutrients you'd be getting if you have the whole package. So our example here today is for a 16-ounce bottle of chocolate milk. So one thing you need to look at, you want to, so if you're going to just chug the whole bottle, then you're going to look at per container, and that's how many calories you're going to get per container. But one thing that's important to know, like, this is just kind of your typical little bottle of milk, almost kind of like a bottle of Coke or, a soda or something. So, it's pretty common that you would just drink the whole thing at one time. However, what you have to know is there are 2 servings in the whole container. So it's always important to see what the serving size is. In this case, it's 1 cup or 8 ounces. But they're also telling you there are 2 servings. So in reality, there are 16 ounces. So you're getting 160 calories per serving, which would be half of the bottle, 320 if you drink the whole thing. So that is so important to just kind of remember, this might not be the whole package. This is just for a portion. And that makes sense if you have like a big bag of rice or something, where you're not going to eat the whole bag. But for like a bag of potato chips or a bottle of chocolate milk, like, that can be decepting, because you would think they're just going to give you the information for the whole bottle, but they might not be. So this also kind of gives you an idea of how, like if you have a bag of maybe, like, I'm thinking of ravioli or something, it might kind of give you an idea of about how many people it could serve based on how many serving sizes are in the package. So you can kind of look at that. Now, serving size. What is a serving size? Who comes up with what that serving size is? Because for me, so a serving size of pasta is probably about like a half a cup. For me, a serving size of pasta is the whole plate. So that's kind of a subjective amount. But what the FDA has done is they're kind of meeting in the middle between a recommended amount of whatever food you're eating, kind of based on like dietary guidelines and health standards and things like that. But then also they're taking a look at like, what's a normal serving size that most people are eating? So a good example is ice cream. For the longest time, a serving size of ice cream was a half a cup. But the FDA, when they kind of did their research, were finding out that people are eating probably more than a half a cup. So if we're, looking at the label and we're looking at the nutrition information for a half a cup, we're all probably eating a little bit more than that. And so we're probably kind of unknowingly eating more calories than we think we are. So they have recently increased that serving size to 2/3 of a cup to match more like what the reality is that people are eating. So that, so again, the serving size is they have to come up with some things to give us the math, all the numbers that we need so we can get the information we need for the nutrients, but they have to kind of decide. So it's kind of like I said, a combination of a recommended amount, but also taking into consideration what's kind of a normal amount that most people eat. Okay.
One other question with this, how would you explain what a calorie is?
So a calorie is, that's a great question, and we talk about it a lot on this show. So calories are just basically our, like the energy we need for our bodies to do what our bodies do. So you can always think of it like putting gas in your car. That's always the analogy I use. So it's like putting, like calories are like gas for our bodies. And one thing I always emphasize is that calories are not bad. We need calories. If we did not have calories, our bodies would just stop doing what they need to do. So we need calories. But that's why these labels are so important, because they give us knowledge as to how many calories we're consuming, so we're not exceeding the amount of calories that we need. And that's where you get into issues with weight gain and things like that. So, yeah. So now we're moving on to the next section.
Yes.
So we're just going down the label. We had to break it up so it would be a little bit bigger.
Yes.
But,
so on top would be the nutrition calories, and now below it we have more the fat, cholesterol, and sodium.
Yes.
So what are different kind of fats meaning? What are good for me? And then we can start with that.
Yeah. So the next section in the nutrition facts label is, so like the three nutrients we're talking about here, fat, cholesterol, and sodium. This is the section where these are the things you need to limit or eat in moderation. So fat, so the way this is laid out, they have total fat, and then they have saturated fat, and then they have trans fat. So there are actually three types of fat that go into this total number. So the one they're leaving out on this particular label is the unsaturated fat. So there's really unsaturated fat, saturated fat, and trans fat. So sometimes you'll see that unsaturated fat number like shown on its own, but other times they just kind of roll it into the total fat. So if you added them all up, if they had the unsaturated fat, then you could add trans, saturated, unsaturated, and you'd get this total 25 grams. Huh?
2.5.
Oh, 2.5, sorry. So saturated fat is the fat that we should really limit the most. That's I don't want to call it the bad fat, because our bodies do need some saturated fat, but that's the one that does have a tendency to kind of increase your risk of heart disease and higher cholesterol and things like that. So that's the one that we tend to emphasize eating in moderation, whereas the unsaturated fat those are the better fats for you. Those are the ones that are better for your heart health and things like that. So that is why they emphasize the amount of saturated fat. So they're actually trying to do us some good. So they're putting out that saturated fat, because that's one we should think about limiting or eating in moderation. So they're showing it to us. The unsaturated fat, there isn't really a limit to that, to how much we should be getting of that. So that's why they're not really emphasizing that. Trans fat, hopefully you're always going to see zero. Trans fat is the bad fat. Like that is one you should not be eating. And so there is actually, they've banned trans fat in the United States. So food manufacturers should not be putting it in our foods. They can have trace amounts, but for the most part, they should not be using it. So that's why I guess they're emphasizing trans fat being zero. But honestly, they should just be able to take that line out eventually, because we shouldn't be putting it in our food. Do you have another question?
Could you explain cholesterol to me, like the studies behind it?
Yeah, so cholesterol is the next line. So cholesterol is also kind of like a type of fat in a way. And, obviously through the last several decades, there's been a lot of talk about cholesterol, and cholesterol is bad for you. Cholesterol is going to cause, if you have too much cholesterol, you're going to have a heart attack and a stroke, and et cetera. But I'm here to tell you that research is starting to shift, and that cholesterol is not as bad for us as we once thought it was. In fact, what a lot of the most recent research is showing is that the cholesterol that we get from our food, so the cholesterol that you're going to see on this line on the nutrition facts label, is not really affecting our cholesterol levels. Like when you go to the doctor and you get your cholesterol, your blood work, cholesterol checked, what we're eating, what the cholesterol we're getting from our food is not really affecting that number. It's the saturated fat more so that's affecting that number. So that's not to, so the catch-22 in this is that most foods that have cholesterol also have saturated fat. They kind of go hand in hand. But we shouldn't necessarily be focused on that cholesterol number. In fact, I would hope that maybe in the future they're going to probably take that line out as well, and we'll just focus on saturated fat. Our bodies can make cholesterol, and that's typically the cholesterol that our bodies are really using, and it's kind of affecting what's happening with our cholesterol levels when we get them checked. So my advice would be kind of just not to say completely ignore the cholesterol, but you don't need to focus on that as much as we thought we did. You need to focus more on the saturated fat. So, yeah.
What about sodium? How much sodium do you think we should be getting in a day?
So the typical recommendation for sodium is about 2,300 milligrams. So you can see here, this is, if you're having one serving, you're getting about 220 milligrams. So sodium, hopefully you realize sodium is one of those foods that we should eat in moderation. 2,300 milligrams is not very much. And then if you have a risk for heart disease or hypertension, you should be eating even or consuming even less. It's about 1,500 milligrams, I think, which is not a lot. So that brings up a good point, another thing on this label that I think causes a lot of confusion, and that's these percentages over here. So those percentages, so basically what they're doing is they're taking a 2,000 calorie diet, which someone has determined that's kind of a like an average diet for most humans. The amount of calories you need per day is very individualized to your particular body. But they're kind of using 2,000 calories as kind of like a generic number. And so basically they're saying this 220 milligrams is 10% of the 2,000, or well, I take that back. They are, this is not calories. So they are assuming everyone needs a 2,000 calorie diet, and then based on that amount of calories, they're figuring out how many nutrients you need of all like the different vitamins. So like how much vitamin A do you need? How much all of the B vitamins do you need? How much sodium do you need? How much fat? How many carbs? How much protein? And so then they're just calculating a percentage of what you need per day based on this number. That's a lot of that's confusing, and that's math, and I don't expect you to do that. So I'm going to give you a quick and easy trick to keep in mind when you're looking at these percentages. So for this section here, fat, cholesterol, and sodium, like I said, these are the things that we should limit. So a good rule to remember is the 5-20 rule. So if one of these percentages is under 5%, that's something you should strive for. Like that's the food you should be more attracted to. And if one of these percentages is over 20%, then you might want to avoid that, because it's going to be kind of a higher amount of one of these things that we could limit. But you kind of also have to take into consideration what you're eating. So for instance, if you're going to have this whole bottle of milk, this is 20%. So you might think, oh, that's got a lot of sodium. Maybe I should stay away from that. However, if you watch the show, you know I'm a huge proponent of milk. And you're getting a lot of other really good things with your milk. You're getting protein and some healthy carbs and calcium and vitamin D and all kinds, and some good things, lots of other vitamins and minerals. So I would prefer you have this sodium coming from this bottle of milk than dumping 450 milligrams of table salt on to a bowl of soup or something. So all right.
And now we're going to go into the third section.
Yep. So we're just moving down the label.
Yep, so under fats and the sodium, we have total carbs and fiber, sugar, and protein.
Yep. So in this section, it's kind of hard to say, okay, the first section is the stuff we should limit, and then this is the stuff what we should get a bunch of, because it's not exactly true, but this is kind of more of the better section. And these are the things you should be making sure you're getting enough of. For some of the things, like fiber and protein, you always want to make sure you're getting enough fiber and protein. But then now they've also broken out sugars, and now they're showing added sugars. So we'll talk a little bit about the difference there. So carbohydrates, kind of like calories, have a bad reputation, and everyone's like, oh, low carb, we shouldn't be eating carbs. And again, I'm here to tell you, carbs are not bad. Carbs are a great source of calories that we need for our bodies. In fact, it's our body's preferred source of calories and fuel. So we definitely need to get carbs, but it's also kind of important to know about how many carbs you need so you don't exceed that amount. And that is something, again, that's individualized. So it's hard to put it on here, but they're kind of estimating based on that 2,000 calorie diet how many carbs we should use or have per day, so that's where they're coming up with that percentage. Anyway, so they're kind of breaking out some of the different types of carbs that are important for us to be aware of. So one is fiber. Fiber is incredibly important that we all get enough fiber. 90% of Americans are not getting enough fiber, especially our older adults. So it's important to look for foods that are good sources of fiber. And a food that is officially a good source of fiber is a food that has 3 grams of fiber. So this has 0. Milk is not known for being a good source of fiber. But if you were eating oatmeal or nuts or something like that, you'd see a higher number here. So a good source of fiber is 3 grams. An excellent source of fiber is 5 grams. So you can always look for that 3 to 5 gram range for a good source of fiber. Sugars are just what they sound like. This is the sugar that's in our food. Some foods have natural sugar in it. Milk is a good example. We don't really think of milk as a sweet thing, but it does have natural sugars in it. Fruit is another example of foods that have natural sugars. But then, as we know, a lot of food has added sugar in it too. So this is another really great addition that the FDA has added to the nutrition facts label, where they're breaking out that added sugar. So that's a line so that you would want to limit, because we really, natural sugar is good because it's probably coming from a more natural food like milk or fruit. So you're reaping all of the other benefits from that food. But those added sugars add up really quickly, and then that can lead to weight gain and things like that. So we want to limit the added sugars for sure. And then protein. Protein, again, hopefully everyone realizes how important, especially for older adults, getting enough protein is to help us maintain our muscle mass, support our immune system, to help our skin, all the things, our eyes, everything. So protein's really important. So it's important to make sure you're getting enough. Again, they're kind of setting the amount of protein we should be getting based on that 2,000 calorie diet. It's also, in reality, very individualized, but as kind of a guide. They're setting the 2,000 calorie diet as the guide, so that's how they're creating this percentage. So you can see here, this chocolate milk has 8 grams of protein per serving, and then double that for the whole container. So it's always a good source of protein.
Do you want to talk about the last section?
Yeah. So the last section is a little variable or varied depending on what you're eating. So this is a section where they're pulling out some of the vitamins and minerals that might be included in this food. Now, there are certain vitamins and minerals that have to be listed for all foods, for the most part. And then food manufacturers can choose to highlight other vitamins or minerals that this particular food might be a good source of. So, we all know milk is a great source of calcium. So they're going to show calcium here to show that, from this one serving, half the bottle, you're going to get 20% of the calcium you need in a day. So that's a great source. Vitamin D is also shown. But then you can see like iron, there's very little iron to none in milk. So, but I think iron is one of those ones that they're required to put, regardless of whether it's a good source of iron or not. Were you gonna say?
I think calcium, iron, and potassium are the
3 required.
Yeah, and when they made the new FDA changes to the nutrition label, they added vitamin D and vitamin A as is required. But on some cereals and other items, the companies have chosen to add extra to showcase what is in their foods.
Yeah, that's good, because I wasn't sure which ones were like required, so I'm glad you do. So you'll see, like she brings up a good point on like cereal, you'll see that list is really long. That's because they're fortifying that cereal with a lot of extra vitamins and minerals. Sometimes some of those fortifications are required by the FDA, and then sometimes companies just like to do it to, add a little extra to their food products. So they'll show all that, and they'll give you the amount that's in there, and then also kind of the percentage of how much that is for what you need for the day.
Very often they're adding things to cereals and stuff like that, because that's what, when babies switch over, that's what their bodies are needing that they're not getting from breast milk anymore.
Yeah.
When I talk about where on the label you can find what ingredients are
So usually right under the label, we don't have a picture of it, we didn't bring a picture of it, but usually right under the nutrition facts label, you'll also see the ingredients listed. So that is a good way to just, it's usually the print is so tiny, it's hard to read. But, they're required to list all of their ingredients in there. One thing to remember is the higher it is on the list, or the closer to the beginning of the list, is the more of that product is in there. So then, so if, I can't think of an example, but anyway, so if you have like something at the beginning, that's like the primary ingredient, and then as it goes on, then that's like lesser and lesser and lesser in there. And so then one other thing that we've started showing under the ingredients label are the allergens. So the FDA has determined, I don't know how many, there's like seven allergens that they have to report, that food manufacturers have to report in there. So they're always going to be in bold, so they're more highly visible. A lot of times, sometimes you'll even see in the ingredients list that they're bolded, so they really stand out. But they are required to report that to avoid any kind of allergen. So people are aware that there might be an allergen in there. They're trying to avoid it.
Those top allergens they've seen around in the population to have the biggest percent of people affected. So they want to make sure that people who have those and are being affected really understand what they're eating and can be safe. Yeah.
But they don't include all of the allergens. Obviously, people can be allergic to all kinds of things, but these are, like Erin said, the top ones. Obviously like peanuts and soy is another big one, and
gluten.
Yeah. So you may have a pineapple allergy, so you won't see that highlighted in a product, but the main ones will always be highlighted, and I'm sure they'll probably start adding to the list as more and more people are developing allergies and things. So
soy was the most recent one to be added. It was very recent to be added.
Yeah.
So they're always doing more research just to make sure that they're staying on top of those things for people to be aware of.
Yeah. So these labels are really trustworthy. The FDA is the one who's regulating food packaging and manufacturing, and what health claims are being put on packages, and then what information is going into these nutrition facts label. And they're doing all the research to determine like what information should be on there. How can we design it better to make it make more sense? How can we, they've made some recent changes to like bold certain things, make font bigger to really emphasize and hopefully make it more readable to kind of the common consumer. It's typically up to the food manufacturer to get the analysis done. Usually they're going to like a private company to do the analysis, like a third party.
Non-biased.
And then they'll submit that to the FDA, and then the FDA can, approve it and then create their facts label. So.
Do you want to tell them what FDA stands for?
Yes, the Food and Drug Administration. So they're the ones who are regulating all of our food, and also a lot of like beauty products and things like that, cosmetics and stuff. So the USDA will do more regulating of produce, like fruits and vegetables and meat products and things like that.
Like the farming and where it's being done before it gets to the customer, and then the FDA has more of the customer to store regulations.
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of dietitians that go into this kind of work because they can, they kind of might go into the FDA to do some of that analysis or some of the research and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, the dietetic world has a lot to offer. It's very broad.
It does. There are a lot of things that you can do other than just working at a long-term care facility, doing little TV shows. So it's exciting. But
yeah.
All right. So if you have any questions about your nutrition facts label, you are always welcome to give me a call or stop in my office. I had a call yesterday from a resident who had a question. She saw something on there. Under the carbohydrate listing, she saw sugar alcohols, and she had no idea what that was, and we had a little chat about what sugar alcohols is. It's just an artificial sweetener, the short answer. So if you see something on your nutrition facts label that you're questioning or not sure what it is, or an ingredient, I'm always happy to help you find the answer to that. So, and if you ever have questions about how much protein you need or calories or whatever, always happy to help you figure that out as well. So don't hesitate to contact me. So thank you, Erin, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You gave us a lot of good information, and we will return next week. So we should be back, or I will. Erin won't be here anymore. So I look forward to seeing you all then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Go see the little ducklings.
Yes.